We don't do interviews. Is that for television?
Okay.
Will you come back home tonight? Won't say, will you come back home tonight? I love you, and you know I will treat you right.
Who's the photo of the man over the door?
That would be my grandfather,
Armando.
Armando. Yeah,
All
my
right.
namesake. Armando
Yes.
died when I was pretty young. I was maybe 10, 11 years old. But he, you know, his life style always stuck with me. And I was going to be named David. You know, my parents had already picked out the name David. And my grandfather, Roy, died just before I was born, so they gave me both grandfathers' names. And I wished I had met Roy. He apparently was quite a guy, too. But I got his name, and I'm glad that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of good Davids out there. I just don't think I'd have been a good David. A better Roy Armando genes.
Very good.
So much more. I'm your host, Armando. We're so pleased, ladies and gentlemen.
When you introduce the acts, you identify yourself as Armando. Why is that?
You know, because my grandfather, Armando, I named the place Armando. There are some people in town who call me Armando and have since high school, because it's, you know, it's a lot more ethnic than Roy here. But Armando sort of became a little bit more of a nickname.
Right, a nickname.
That John Lee
Yes.
Hooker.
People call you John Lee Hooker?
Yeah. In high school, because I like John Lee Hooker, so yeah, like my immediate friends, class of '65, would call me John Lee. Well, and Armando is just that kind of name that, you know, you can't quite figure out. You know, it's mostly Spanish, and it's not cookie cutter. You know, Armando's. A lot of people think I was Amato's, which was around the corner here.
Yes.
And people come over here and say, "Oh, you moved around the corner," and I said, "You know, Amato's was a good restaurant with no music, and I am just here for the music, and I don't serve any food unless you consider beer nuts food."
Everything can have drama if it's done right, even a pancake. Julia Child.
Talk amongst yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow night we've got flamenco music in here. Saturday night we've got the Bowen Brothers.
At what point did you know it was going to keep going?
You know, I knew it was going to keep going from the get-go, because I was making enough money painting that, you know, people don't sell their boat. You know, they keep the
Right,
boat forever,
right.
you know, so
Yes.
this was just a matter of, well, I can make enough money to keep this going, because this is what I love to do. I mean,
Yes.
I love listening to music, and I'm a pretty good host. You know, I can see where, okay, something's not working over here, let's go make it right. And it's pretty easy to do if you're paying attention. And I came up through that business, you know, people that own restaurants. My uncle, Paul Pagnetti, this is an early memory of me. I'd be sitting, you know, just watching him greet people at the door. He knew everybody by name. He knew their niece, their nephew, they knew where they were going to school. I mean, and I thought, well, as you get older, you will get a better memory. Well, that never happened with me. I'm still bad with names. But I saw how he operated. He was hands-on, and everybody in the place felt that the owner knew them and was connected to them, and it made things, you know, he had a very, very popular restaurant here in town, Paul's Place, which burned down in like 1983, and the town never been the same. He had music in his place Friday and Saturday night, a dance floor, parquet dance floor, and the music, of course, was geared to a much older, well, yeah, now we're that old.
I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. Bob Dylan.
But I mean, at the time when we were, you know, teenagers and 20 years old, the music was still that sort of big band era stuff, and he had a very popular place. He served great food, and he had a venue that people liked to come to. So I suspect my Uncle Paul, thank you, who art in heaven,
Yes.
you know, for providing me with that insight.
Flamenco music in here. Saturday night we've got the Bowen Brothers, and Sunday we've got Dan Hicks.
I would do. I was also doing auctioneering, which is something like being the MC of this. You know, you're addressing people and you're trying to, you know, get them to buy art.
Art is anything you can get away with. Marshall McLuhan.
I'd frame the art. I'd throw a party. It'd be an auction party, and you know, so I had some exposure at public speaking. But it wasn't altogether very successful. I mean, Christmas would bail me out, you know, the 11 months before that. And finally, Christmas didn't do it, and I subsequently got married. I had kids, and there wasn't enough money in the picture framing business, so I started painting houses. But it's funny, in this little town here, people live up the street and think that, oh yeah, you just moved around the corner. There's my daughter. She's in town for a couple weeks. Yeah, my daughter, who is works in movies as a costume designer. But she's going up to Portland next month for about a month to work on a movie. But she's here for a couple weeks, you know, which I'm glad to see her.
Young woman.
Yeah.
Both of your children.
And Hazel, my son, works here a lot, you know. And there's a lot to do besides being here, you know, when the music's on. A lot of maintenance and, you know. So I got both my kids. So that's a pretty good little world I live in.
Let's see.
My dad used to say, what an orchestra. Okay, so we're going to do this little song called Rayon, which is an extended metaphor about a relationship.
I'm gonna write you a letter, put it in a song.
Some great music, and I'm, you know, cleaning glasses, you know, putting them up so that we have clean glasses.
Yes.
So I mean, there's times when I'm just mesmerized by how good the talent is in here, and what a show. I look out in the audience, and everybody's got a smile on their face. You can see their heads are bopping, and I said, man, it doesn't get any better than that for me.
Next one, somebody next. Snakebite.
Human salvation lies in the hands of the creatively maladjusted. Martin Luther King.
Explain your motto, open to music.
It seemed to catch a lot of things. You know,
Yes.
I was open to music, and in fact, the place is only open to music. I'm not a bar that has music, you know, in the corner
Yes.
on Friday and Saturday night. I mean, this place is just open to music. And it seemed to cover a lot of things. You know, I was open to, you know, we've done klezmer music in here. We do classical music in here, Western swing, the whole gamut. You know, Thursday night we've got Zydeco music in here. So we really feature some really top-notch performers who like playing here, and they play here for half price, half what they can get in the city. And they seem to be pretty happy about doing it because they like playing where people are listening to them.
You have to play a long time to be able to play like yourself. Miles Davis.
I noticed some of the photos here are some of the people who have come and performed.
Right.
And what performers in particular started showing up?
Well, you know, when we got Bonnie Raitt, when we got...
Don't you feel my leg? Don't you feel my leg?
Maria Muldaur.
Uh-huh.
That was, wow, we've got Maria Muldaur. I mean, this is, she was an international,
Yes.
star, and she still does some great music.
Yeah.
And somehow, because she was in here, other artists took notice, and so eventually Dan Hicks would come in here, and Dan's, he's quite the guy, and puts on a hell of a show, and then we were getting people like Lucero, which was a national act, and the crowd was much, much younger. But when Lucero came in here, people didn't know where Armando's was, but Lucero, who had a poster made, their West Coast tour would be Portland, Seattle, Sacramento, Martinez. You go, wait a minute. Everybody knew where all these other things. Where the hell is Martinez? So people started to take notice. So now we have a bunch of national, acts want to play Armando's. We tell them, look, that's kind of a freak act. Lucero, they were doing Hardly Strictly, and they were in the neighborhood. And because of Tony Isabella again, who handled them, so they got a day off. Can they play here? And I said, absolutely. And so it's just been kind of, good luck.
Yes.
The power of imagination makes us infinite. John Muir.
A lot of people are making money doing these corporate gigs. It pays good money, but the corporate world is not a musical world, and so they pay a couple $1,000s to put in, a lot more than that for some bands. But the bands don't really get off on it. They're they're making money.
Yes.
They like that, but they don't get that juju you get when you play in front of people who are listening to you.
Do you think that's your earliest memories of music?
My father, when the war was over in Germany or in Europe, he stayed in Europe for about 2 months and chased down Django Reinhardt. I mean, he loved jazz. So jazz was always music that I grew up with, the Mills Brothers, the big band, and he loved Dixieland music. So that was my earliest memory of music, would be sitting, listening to music with my dad on the radio. It was before television, and he'd ask me, what kind of instruments do you hear? And I said, that sounds like a trombone. He said, yeah, that's a trombone. So he was educating me in a sort of fatherly way. He'd go over to the city and Earthquake Magoons. He took me to Earthquake Magoons when I was, like 12 years old. He introduced me. He knew everybody in the place. So they all knew him. They knew what he was drinking. And he'd go in there and introduce me to these, Clancy Hayes and Bob Scobie. I was very, very fortunate, I think, to be in high school when the Beatles broke. Because music up until then was really pretty boring. I mean, there were the Beach Boys, and there was Chuck Berry, and there was some good music. But a lot of it was Neil Sedaka and Leslie Gore and all that crap that came out of Philadelphia that was just produced by old men. This is what we're going to have the kids listen to. And it was just, God, it was terrible. The top 40 station would have maybe 50 songs they played. And it was just the same rotation, the same crap. It was all big business, very little to do with, really good music.
Between every two pines is a doorway to a new world. John Muir.
Then the Beatles come along, and they're doing music in real time, and it was just so refreshing. And I mean, immediately when the Beatles hit, there was no question, this was the wave of the future. I was a junior in high school, and they played Ed Sullivan, and the rest, they say, is history.
Were there others? The Beatles were one.
Well, Chuck Berry, I love Fats Domino. On that New Orleans thing, I didn't even know at the time, Fats Domino was New Orleans, but I just love that piano roll. But I like people like Jelly Roll Morton, an early pioneer of the stride piano, I think is what he was playing. Great stuff, and I could recognize Jelly Roll Morton. I used to listen to these old radio stations, when I was going to bed at night. I could hear these, and I'd recognize these old stars, and man, I thought, this guy is really, really good.
What kind of concerts did you attend?
Before the Beatles, there would be these big things at the Cow Palace, where they would get everybody together. They'd all do like 2 songs, and all the hit songs. And there, a lot of this was bad music. But it was an opportunity to go hear live music, music that you'd hear on the radio. And everybody would do their hit, but they'd go through like 20 artists, and they'd all do their hit and move off stage. And the next artist would be on. Fabian would do, what the hell was that big hit of his? It was terrible music. Good-looking fella, by the way, Fabian.
Uh-huh.
But there was no music there. And, you know, there was a lot of bands, you know, my age. They all did high school dances. You know, when we had a high school dance, we'd have our contemporaries up there on stage playing the, you know, the hits of the day. Fortunately, when I was a junior and senior, they were playing, you know, some better hits.
There's a very fine line between a groove and a rut. Christine Lavin.
Why did you make up the Do Not playlist, and how long did it take to put that together?
You know, I think 30 years I've been working on this list. And I would like walk out of bars all the time. As soon as the band played Mustang Sally, that was the time to go to the bathroom, go throw up, go outstairs, check anything. Just do not be in the room when that song is on, because it's such a, you know, people told me, well, it's a really pretty good song, but God, I've heard it a million times. I don't want to hear it anymore. So I made that kind of a joke here, and the bands love it. For the most part, the bands are, no Mustang Sally, we're in, you know, thank you. But I don't have bands that play Mustang Sally, but you'd be surprised. I had a guy about maybe 2 years ago in the Blues Jam started. Matter of fact, Jim Parumpus was, he knows the rules here. And the guy started playing Mustang Sally, and Jim's, okay, give it a try. And
what happened?
And, well, because the song came on, and most people in the place know I don't like that song. And the band all knew it too, and they were all kind of grinning. So I went up to the microphone, and I took the microphone away from him and says, you can't play that song. And the guy was like shocked, you know, nobody ever stopped him from playing a song. And I said, look, there's rules here, you know, don't play Mustang Sally. And people were, you know, applauding and hooting, and I got off stage again. But, you know, if I made the rules, damn it, then they gotta comply. You know, I mean, no, you do not urinate in the building. Damn it, you know, we have rules here. So.
If you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun. Katharine Hepburn.
I grew a mustache, trained it like a puppet. Susie's got such hot lips, she kissed me once and burned it up. If you knew Susie like I know Susie, oh, 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 what a girl. Oh, what a girl. Oh, yeah.
I said, you know why it's called Snake Road? I said, because there's snakes. There's snakes everywhere. This was the first carpooling route in the United States. The oil workers came from Crockett and went to Martinez, and the sugar workers from Martinez went to Crockett every morning on this road. And this was a great place when Alhambra High and John Swett High School were great rivals. They would caravan, meet downtown, and you'd caravan to Crockett for the football game, and then caravan home. Hopefully everybody made it safe. There were a lot of accidents on this road. There's a huge amount of history here. It is known as Snake Road. If you go on and put Snake Road Martinez, you'll find people who've enjoyed this walk for so many years, and pictures and publish and the things they talk about that they've discovered here. Some have discovered ghosts, some have discovered our linear, not promoting this idea, but the linear art gallery that I think some of the high school students have created over the years. Hopefully just keeping it with chalk, you guys.
He says no paint. Just a matter of time.